Apex Island descended on Chicago. Kevin's attempts to take down the flying island failed, and resisting Dark Kevin's insistence that he fry his own brains with the Pinnacle's powerful helmet had almost derailed Kevin. Brett Stewart of the Myriads arrived in time to create a diversion that would help Kevin to escape, though both Kevin and Brett knew that Brett's selfless actions would almost certainly result in his death. The Pinnacle ensnared the citizens of Chicago, turning them into mindless puppets, but Kevin was heartened when Lily refused to be tucked away and joined his rebel forces to continue the fight. Kevin called the surviving members of his team to his war room at the penthouse offices of Williams & Williams Pharmaceuticals. Lily also insisted on being present despite the doctor's warnings that she needed to stay on bed rest for the sake of the twin she was carrying. Yuki, Hiro, Sasha, Olivia, Dalton, and Zara were there. Several other members of Kevin's inner circle were still out trying to gather intel. Kevin desperately hoped Agent Karen Stone of Interpol and Stanley Cooper of the Government Reaper Squad would be able to give them good news as well. After some feverish work, his resident computer genius, Zara, spoke up. "I have a secured channel to Agent Stone and Stanley Cooper, Kevin. But they might not last long. The Pinnacle is trying to hack their way everywhere." "Then we better make this fast," Kevin decided. "Open up the channels." Instantly, holographs of Agent Karen Stone and Stanley Cooper swam into being in the war room.
"Kevin, you're alive,"
Stanley Cooper exclaimed with obvious relief.
"Thank heaven."
"It was a close thing," Kevin agreed, thinking back on the sacrifices of Brett Stewart and the many myriad soldiers with sorrow. "We need an update on the international situation." "It's not good," Agent Karen Stone said flatly. "The Pinnacle has taken over every major city on the planet and enslaved the populations. Several major governments are now under their sway as well." "It's the same here in Chicago," Lily offered, her heart breaking for her city. "The Pinnacle is broadcasting that brainwashing claptrap of theirs on every television and radio station in the city. They've hacked every cell tower, so it's on everyone's phone. They've even hijacked digital billboards and the Superglass Dome around the World's Fair and are showing it there." Once under the Pinnacle's sway, the citizens of Chicago had quietly filed into internment camps, willing slaves to the evil organization now under the power of Kevin's evil doppelganger, DK. A few people were able to resist the brainwashing to a small degree, but even they were wandering the empty city streets like zombies. "Isn't there anything the government can do to take down Apex Island?" Sasha demanded of Stanley Cooper. "Without their headquarters, we might have a chance against them." Stanley rubbed his face tiredly.
"We already did everything we could," he explained. "We threw all our resources into the bombing of Apex Island and barely made a dent in it. Without specific knowledge of how to take down the island, all our resources are useless."
"Kevin, someone's trying to hack our signal," Zara warned. "There are too many attacks. I can't hold them off much longer." "I'm sorry, Kevin," Agent Karen Stone quickly said. "But you're the world's only hope of defeating the Pinnacle and saving the Foundation. You must—" But before she could finish, both her and Stanley Cooper's holograms disappeared. "We got hacked," Zara apologized. "I had to end the signal. Do you want to try again later?" Kevin shook his head. Stanley Cooper is right. Without more information on Apex Island, another attack is useless. Dalton Steele slammed his big fist down on the table.
"We have to do something. We can't just sit around with our thumbs up our noses and hope the answer drops into our laps."
Kevin opened his mouth to reply, but before he could, the floor-to-ceiling windows of the war room suddenly exploded inward. A person in a Pinnacle uniform somersaulted into their midst through the broken window. The person stood up, revealing himself to be Mario Kessler. "You!" Olivia and Sasha roared together. Olivia and Sasha had faced Mario during the epic clash. Kevin had encountered him again on the moon during his mission to thwart Quentin Covington's plan to destroy the planet. The last time Kevin had seen Mario had accidentally blasted himself into the voids of space for the second time. "I shouldn't be surprised to see you back here," Kevin growled. "If there was any power evil enough to bring you back to the planet, It would have to be the pinnacle. Space hasn't made you any smarter, Mario, Olivia observed. Only you would be dumb enough to attack Kevin Williams' war room single-handed. Everybody prepared to attack Mario, but he suddenly held up his hands.
Stop! Wait! I'm on your side.
Dalton pulled and cocked an AK-47 and pointed it at Mario.
Yeah, sure, buddy. Tell us another one.
Really? Mario pleaded. With one move, he tore the pinnacle emblem from his uniform and threw it on the ground.
I had a lot of time to think in space and just got back to Earth. I don't want to see it destroyed by the pinnacle.
How do we know we can trust you? Kevin demanded.
Because I have the plans for Apex Island. You can use them to bring down the pinnacle. I swear it, Kevin.
Kevin forced Dalton to lower his gun. If you give us these plans, and if this isn't a trap, maybe we'll let you live.
Let me live? Let me live?
Mario started laughing.
Kevin, don't you know no one leaves the pinnacle and survives?
Hiro and Yuki traded scared glances. What's he mean? Before Kevin could answer, Mario's laugh turned into a gurgle. Suddenly, a gush of blood burst from Mario's mouth and splattered across the war room. Kevin felt for a pulse, but it was too late. He's dead. Olivia looked down at Mario's body. I guess it doesn't matter if he was telling the truth or not. We'll never know where the plans are now. Actually, Kevin began. Hiro and Yuki closed the bomb-proof shutters over the broken window in the war room, and then Kevin cleared everyone out except Sasha and Olivia. Kevin took just a moment to give Sweet Lily a kiss before assuring her that he would rejoin her as soon as he oversaw his urgent quest to find the Apex Island plans. I've been developing the ability to communicate with the dead, he quickly explained, knowing that the importance and urgency of the matters at hand would not have Sasha and Olivia absorbing any time with an elaborate explanation of the skills that came with his ascension to level 9. It requires 3 people with at least their first level, a Ouija board, and something from the dead person. We'll only be able to get simple answers from Mario's spirit, but it's worth a try. We've got something from the dead person, Sasha noted, looking at Mario's body. And the 3 of us have levels, but where are we going to get a Ouija board on short notice? Right here. Kevin held up a Sharpie and wrote the alphabet out directly on the big conference table along with the words yes and no. Olivia lit a candle and placed it on the table along with a water glass in place of a planchette. The 3 of them joined hands over Mario's torn pinnacle insignia. We, the living, seek the spirit to whom this object belonged, they said in unison. The candle flickered and then blazed like a torch. Are you here with us, Mario? Kevin asked. The water glass slid over to yes. Can you tell us where the plans to Apex Island are? The water glass slid to yes again. Where are the plans? Kevin demanded. He could feel Sasha and Olivia gripping his hands hard. The tension in the room was through the roof. The water glass slid around the table, spelling out, look back. Look back? Sasha echoed. Look back at what? From where? The water glass again spelled out, look back, look back, look back. Suddenly, it stopped moving. The glass seemed to tremble. The atmosphere changed to one of dread. What does that mean, Kevin? Olivia demanded. Is Mario going to haunt us? No, Kevin said slowly. I think it means he's scared of something. The water glass shot to yes. What are you scared of, Mario? The glass spelled out, the light. So wherever Mario is, he's seeing a light that scares him? Sasha guessed. The glass shot to yes. Then it zoomed around again. Should I go? It spelled out, trembling interrogatively when it finished. Some nerve Mario's got asking you for help after everything he did. Sasha grumbled, but Kevin hushed him. Yes, Mario, Kevin called out. You should go to the light. But what about... Olivia began, but at that instant, the glass shattered. At the same time, the candle went out, plunging them into darkness. A moment later, Olivia flipped on the lights. That was a waste of time, she complained. We don't have a clue what Mario did with the plans to Apex Island. Sometimes you're too nice, Kevin, Sasha added. Mario Kessler didn't deserve being helped into some glorious afterlife. I'm not so sure Mario's afterlife will be so glorious, Kevin said distractedly, going to where Mario's body still lay face down in a pool of blood. But I think he did give us a clue. Look back was the message. Look back at what? Olivia wondered. Kevin didn't answer. He just sliced down the back of Mario's Pinnacle uniform and peeled it away. What the heck is that? Sasha demanded. Mario's back was a confusing network of fine blue lines. It looks like a chicken walked through an ink pot. That's no chicken scratch, Kevin proclaimed. He took out his phone and started photographing the complicated tattoo. Those are the blueprints of Apex Island. Kevin returned to Chicago to save Lily and the Foundation, but the battle seemed impossible. Until old enemy Mario Kessler arrived and related he was turning on the Pinnacle and offering information. A seance had to be held to contact Mario, soon killed at the Pinnacle's hands, in order to find the blueprints to Apex Island, which were tattooed on his back. Inside the war room, Kevin stood before his team, his gaze sweeping over the determined faces of his surviving allies. Dalton, Olivia, Marcus, Kyle, Hero, Yuki, Zara, ex-astronaut Zip Merlot, Wayne Ford, Harley Shepard, and others were all battered and bruised but had gathered together around the long conference table at the center of the room. Lily stood by Kevin's side, her presence a beacon of strength in the Foundation's darkest hour. Kevin laid out the blueprints of Apex Island that he had hastily sketched after finding them tattooed on Mario's dead body. These are the blueprints to Apex Island, Kevin explained. Somewhere inside this design plan is our key to salvation. With the threat of the Pinnacle's forces looming just beyond the walls of their sanctuary, the team wasted no time in delving into the intricate blueprints of Apex Island. Every line and detail held the potential to uncover a weakness, a chink in the armor of their formidable enemy that they could exploit to turn the tide of battle in their favor. As they pored over the schematics, each member of the team lent their unique expertise to the task at hand.
Look for a power source, Dalton offered.
Or the navigation system, Olivia countered. Maybe we can hack into their communications console, Zara noted. Flip their message of obedience.
Or just blow the whole dang thing up, Zip Merlot countered simply.
But as the team searched for a weakness amid the elaborate corridors and defenses of their enemy's fortress, frustration began to mount. The blueprints revealed a formidable stronghold fortified against any would-be intruders with layers of defenses and traps designed to deter even the most determined adversaries. We need to think outside the box, Kevin declared. There has to be a way to penetrate their defenses, to exploit a vulnerability that they haven't accounted for. The team redoubled their efforts scouring the blueprints for any sign of weakness or oversight. As Kevin and his friends meticulously combed through the intricate blueprints, a sudden commotion outside the war room drew their attention. What is that? Olivia wondered. Racing to the nearest window, the team looked out upon the scene of devastation, a heavily damaged city overrun by the Pinnacle forces. There! Hero motioned to the street below. Look! Kevin looked on as the Pinnacle warriors marched through the streets with chilling precision, their ranks bolstered by thousands of innocent civilians who had fallen under their hypnotic thrall. The once bustling thoroughfares were now filled with the eerie silence of mind-controlled masses, their vacant eyes betraying the loss of their free will. Kevin's heart sank as he watched the scene unfold before him, a sinking realization dawning upon him. They didn't have much time. The hypnotized civilians were spreading like a plague, flooding every building in their path and ensnaring unsuspecting civilians to join the Pinnacle's ever-growing army. We have to act fast, Kevin declared, his voice urgent as he turned to his friends. The Pinnacle's forces are spreading throughout the city, hypnotizing more innocent people and leading them to join their ranks. The Pinnacle forces will just keep growing until every man, woman, and child has become a member of their evil fleet. With the Pinnacle's forces encroaching upon the city, and the war room's windows providing a grim view of the hypnotized civilians flooding the streets, Kevin knew the time was running out.
"They're sweeping all the buildings," Dalton noted. "Pinnacle warriors are going through every standing structure and pulling out every civilian they can find."
"Why?" Lily asked with growing concern. "To hypnotize them and turn them into more brainwashed minions," Kevin explained. "And how long till they get in here?" Lily wondered. It was a good question. Kevin addressed the situation with a sense of urgency. "This building is heavily reinforced, designed to withstand attacks." Kevin began, his voice resolute. "I've had numerous enemies in the past, and this building was designed to hold them off. But we can't rely on that alone to keep the Pinnacle at bay forever." His words hung heavy in the air as his friends absorbed the gravity of the situation. They knew that their sanctuary was only temporary, a fleeting respite from the relentless onslaught of the Pinnacle's forces. They needed a plan, a decisive course of action that would give them a fighting chance against their formidable foe. Kevin scanned the blueprints once again, his eyes darting across the intricate diagrams in search of a solution. With each passing moment, the weight of their predicament bore down upon him, driving him to find a way to turn the tide of battle in their favor. And then Kevin's eyes fell upon a crucial detail, a hidden passage concealed within the bowels of Apex Island. A glimmer of hope emerged from the chaos engulfing them. He turned to face his friends, his voice growing in strength as he realized all was not lost. "I found it," Kevin announced, his words ringing out with a newfound sense of determination.
"What is it?"
Dalton asked. "What do you see?" Olivia added. Kevin motioned toward a specific point on the blueprint. "The key to stopping the Pinnacle and saving Chicago and the Foundation. It's here in this small chamber. The anti-gravity engine at the center of Apex Island." "Anti-gravity engine?" Zip repeated, his curiosity piqued. "Take a look for yourself," Kevin offered. His friends leaned in, their eyes wide with anticipation as Kevin explained his plan. "If we can cut the power to the anti-gravity engine, Apex Island will plummet to the ground and be destroyed. It's our best chance at striking the heart of the Pinnacle and defeating their evil forces once and for all." The group considered the possibility. It was a good plan. But wait. Olivia's voice cut through the hopeful atmosphere, her expression grave as she raised a crucial point. "If Apex Island crashes to the ground, it will cause catastrophic damage to Chicago. That island is 10 miles wide. If we drop that on top of the city, it will kill everyone. We can't risk that many innocent lives, even if it means stopping the Pinnacle once and for all." Kevin's heart sank at the realization, the weight of Olivia's words bearing down upon him. He knew that she was right. They couldn't sacrifice the lives of innocent civilians in their quest to defeat the Pinnacle, even if it might mean salvation for others. They needed a plan, a way to divert Apex Island away from the city and minimize the potential for collateral damage. Someone will have to steer Apex Island away from the city, Kevin realized. Someone will have to stay on the island to make sure it's clear of Chicago. It's a suicide mission. Tension filled the air. And then, amidst the tense silence that enveloped the war room, a voice spoke up, a voice filled with determination and resolve. "I'll do it," Zip Merlot declared, his eyes shining with conviction. "I'll navigate Apex Island away from the city toward the river." "Zip," Kevin protested, "I can't ask you to do that." "You didn't ask," Zip replied. "I volunteered. I've had a groovy life. I've seen more than most people will ever get to see. And I'm an awesome pilot. I can do this. I want to do this. Let me do this." Kevin's heart swelled with gratitude as he looked at Zip, his admiration for the ex-astronaut's bravery overwhelming him. With Zip at the helm, they had a chance a chance to save Chicago from destruction and defeat the Pinnacle once and for all. With their plan in place and their resolve cemented, Kevin and his friends prepared to embark on their daring mission. For as long as they stood united, they knew that they had a chance to defy the odds and emerge victorious against the darkness that threatened to consume them all. Kevin nodded, a sense of gratitude washing over him as he looked at Zip. "Thank you, Zip. Your bravery will not be forgotten," he said, his voice choked with emotion. With a firm handshake and a nod of understanding, Zip prepared to embark on his mission, a mission that could mean the difference between life and death for the people of Chicago. But as Zip made his final preparations, a chilling voice echoed through the war room, cutting through the solemn atmosphere like a blade.
"Obey," the voice boomed. "Obey! Obey!"
It was the Pinnacle forces who were using their bullhorns to demand Kevin and his team surrender with the blueprints.
"We know you have found the blueprints," the voice continued. "Lower your defenses and allow us to access your war room or suffer the consequences."
Kevin's jaw clenched with determination as he turned to face his friends. "We can't let the Pinnacle intimidate us," he declared, his voice ringing with resolve. "We have to stay focused on our mission." With a sense of unity and purpose, Kevin and his team rallied together, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. For as long as they stood united, they knew that they had a chance to save Chicago from destruction and defeat the Pinnacle once and for all. Kevin's eyes cast toward the war room's windows, and outside, he saw the growing forces of the Pinnacle arriving at the base of the skyscraper. The battle against the Pinnacle was going to be fought on many fronts. Thanks to the blueprints tattooed on Mario Kessler's back, Kevin and his team finally figured out a way to bring down Apex Island, the floating headquarters of the Pinnacle, which had taken over most of the world. Kevin planned to have ex-astronaut Zip Merlot pilot the floating island away from Chicago, so that Kevin could then cut the power to the anti-gravity engine which keeps it aloft. But before they can put the plan into action, the Pinnacle and the brainwashed citizens of Chicago attack the building. Kevin stared down at the mass of Chicago citizens swarming the building. "Kevin, the barriers won't hold much longer," Yuki warned. "We can't hurt them," Lily exclaimed. "Even if those people are under the sway of the Pinnacle, they're still innocent citizens." Dalton looked to Zara.
"Isn't there something we can do to counteract the brainwashing the Pinnacle did on those poor saps?"
"Yes," she replied, fingers flying over her computer keyboards. "Kevin figured out the counter-programming a while ago. The problem is the Pinnacle by now controls every form of broadcasting in the city, and I can't hack my way in. Once the Pinnacle goes down, we can take over the airways, but first we have to get to Apex Island." Kevin's mind raced, going over the blueprints for the floating headquarters once again. "We got less than 5 minutes before the mob gets inside," Hero warned.
"Sounds like you folks could use a stellar lift out of this bummer,"
a voice said from the doorway. Everyone looked over to see Zip Merlot, the septuagenarian astronaut that Kevin had once rescued from the moon, standing in the doorway. Zip hooked a thumb toward the roof. "Your good buddy from the Reaper Squad sent over some of that groovy Area 52 tech if any of you want to make like a bird and fly this coop. Literally, man, I'm ready for my mission." "That sounds just like what we need," Kevin agreed. He had been wondering how he would get everyone he needed to Apex Island to put their plan in motion. 2 minutes until the barriers are breached," Hero warned again. Kevin grabbed Lily by the arms. "I'm sorry, Lily, but you can't come with me. Going to Apex Island is too dangerous." He gave her a smile. "Besides, someone needs to continue the fight in case I fail." Lily looked like she wanted to argue, but instead ran a hand over her bulging belly. "You won't fail, Kevin," she said with absolute faith. "I know you can do whatever you put your mind to, but make sure you come back to me and our babies alive and well. That's all I ask of you." "I promise to do my best," Kevin gave her a quick kiss. There was no time for longer goodbyes. Use the tunnels under the city to get back to the mayor's mansion. The Pinnacle's flying soldiers won't be able to get at you that way. Wait for me there. Kevin looked over to Dalton, Steele, Zara, Hiro, and Yuki. You four go with her, he ordered. Sasha and Olivia, you're with me and Zip. Go now, Kevin ordered, and they scattered in different directions. When Kevin ran out onto the roof of Williams & Williams Pharmaceuticals, he almost stopped and stared at the strange vehicle parked on the helipad. It looked like a hovercraft had crash-landed on 4 miniature helicopters and gotten the blade stuck in the underside. What the heck is that? Sasha demanded. No idea, Zip yelled back. It's some of that far-out alien junk. I just call it the hover chopper. Kevin, Sasha, Zip, and Olivia jumped inside the strange aircraft. Do you know how to fly this thing? Olivia asked. I can fly anything that can leave the ground, foxy lady, Zip assured her. Sit by me and I'll show you how it's done. True to his word, Zip piloted the whisper-quiet vehicle up and into the air, all the while instructing Olivia on its controls. Looking down past the whirling blades under them, Kevin saw the huge mob of brainwashed Chicagoans break through the barriers of Williams & Williams Pharmaceuticals and flood inside. He prayed Lily and the others had already escaped into the secret tunnels below the city. As they soared through the air, Kevin reviewed the plan with Zip and the others. In order to take out the anti-gravity engine that kept Apex Island aloft, Kevin would need to enter through the underside of the island. While he made his way up through the bowels of the island, Zip and the others would have to make it to the island's piloting station and steer the floating headquarters out over Lake Superior. Once Kevin disabled the anti-gravity engine, Apex Island would crash into the lake without crushing innocent citizens. Under the cover of a heavy fog rolling off the lake, Zip slipped them up and under the island. The downward force of the anti-gravity engine caused the hover chopper to rock and sway. Zip had to push its engines to their limit to get Kevin within reach of the series of vent pipes that jutted out from the rocky underside of the island. Kevin looked at Sasha and Olivia. They were two of the best leveled fighters he knew. I'm counting on you two to do any fighting needed to get Zip to the pilot station topside. No offense, Zip, he added. None taken. I'm not as young as I used to be, Zip allowed. No shame in that. But if you see my evil double, DK, avoid him at all costs, Kevin ordered. He's too dangerous for you to take on, even with Sasha and Olivia by your side. Sasha and Olivia traded looks, but nodded. They had heard too much about Kevin's dark doppelganger to want to risk a run-in with him. Good luck, young blood, Zip called as Kevin carefully climbed to the top of the hover chopper. The vent was still 15 feet above. Kevin gathered all his leveled strength and made the vertical leap. For a second, he thought he wouldn't make it, but a slight boost from his newly developing telekinesis bought him the extra inch he needed to get a grip on the slippery pipe. He pulled himself up and inside, tipping a wave back at the hover chopper before it slipped away into the mist. Then Kevin began his long, arduous climb up into the depths of Apex Island to find the anti-gravity engine and bring down the floating menace. Fortunately, the mist was as thick on the top of the island as it was underneath. Zip was able to land the hover chopper in a deserted corner without attracting any attention. Zip, Sasha, and Olivia slipped from the alien vehicle and toward the pilot station. They had all memorized the blueprints of the island, but the mist made navigation tricky. Twice they made wrong turns, but at last found the tiny glass building set onto a ledge of rock. They peered inside. Only one Pinnacle operative was on duty at the pilot station, and Olivia recognized her as Nora, the Red Stars soccer player whom Kevin had told Olivia had been the subject of a lapse in his usually unerring judgment. He had enabled her to begin the acquisition of levels before he realized that there was evil in her heart, and she had turned her newfound skills not toward good, but as Olivia saw clearly now, toward aiding the enemy of the Foundation, the Pinnacle. Olivia signaled for Zip to wait where he was while she and Sasha took care of troubling but distracted Nora. It almost went perfectly. Olivia and Sasha worked in perfect synchronization, with Olivia aiming high and Sasha aiming low as they unleashed blasts of their superior-leveled power at Nora. She was momentarily stunned and reeled to find her two attackers. Olivia went on the offensive before Nora had time to regroup or retreat. "I know the betrayal that you perpetrated against Kevin and the Foundation. You should have known that even an alliance with a supposedly great force like the Pinnacle would not be able to save you from retribution." Nora scoffed, incorrectly thinking that she had the upper hand in this confrontation, which was taking place on her home station of Apex Island. "Kevin is naive. His time and that of the Foundation is over. Anyone who doesn't align with the greater force." Before Nora could get out the last words of her sentence, a surge of leveled power plunged into her body and sent it reeling through the open doorway of the pilot station and off the edge of Apex Island. Her screams could be heard spiraling toward an inevitable death of broken bones and gushing blood. A shocked Olivia looked at Sasha, who had unleashed the forces against their foe. He shrugged and said, "I couldn't let her waste any more of our time." Other matters did indeed beckon. The battle had created a mist that made the floor of the pilot station damp and slippery. And Nora's desperate thrashing and grasping as Sasha's levels scurried her across the station and out the door had her hitting her head on the pilot's console that mangled many of the controls and caused wires to fray and snap. Olivia and Sasha rushed to assess the damage to the crackling panel as Zip ducked around them to offer the opinion of a space traveler with many decades of experience. "Were any of the controls damaged?" Sasha asked anxiously. Zip ran the controls through their paces. "Nothing important. Just a few navigation gauges and the autopilot function," Zip replied. "What does that mean for our plans?" Olivia asked. Zip gave her a smile that was a touch more wry than his usual give-him-hell grin. "Not a thing, Foxy Lady. We're still a go for our plans, assuming Kevin can knock out the anti-gravity engine." Zip grabbed the controls. Navigation was no problem. The dark expanse of Lake Superior was unmistakable even through the mist. Zip redirected the island toward its watery depths. The climb through the vent pipes was exhausting. Kevin had to fight the downward gravitational blast that kept the island floating every inch of the way. After only 5 minutes, his fingertips were bruised and bleeding from clawing his way up. But he continued on, calling on thoughts of his darling Lily and their precious twins to keep him going even when his muscles felt like jelly and his skin was raw and torn. Halfway through the pipes, he felt a subtle change in the island around him. Kevin knew that they had shifted directions and hoped that meant that Zip and the others had reached the pilot station and taken control. Within minutes, Apex Island should safely be over Lake Superior, but that also meant Kevin's time was shorter than ever. At last, Kevin came to the end of the vent pipes and hauled himself over the ledge. For a moment, he lay there, shaking and exhausted, but knowing he still had a long way to go to finish his mission. He quickly swallowed a recovery pill but couldn't wait for it to take effect. He stumbled to his feet, desperate to push on. He reached the anti-gravity engine and put a hand out to uncouple it from its power source. Once uncoupled, the engine would slowly die, and Apex Island would fall out of the sky. "Kevin, stop. I can't let you do that," a familiar voice behind him said. Kevin spun around, already dreading this conversation. Behind him stood his cousin, Ethan Williams. He held a gun pointed directly at Kevin's head. Kevin planned to have septuagenarian astronaut Zip Merlot pilot the floating Apex Island over Lake Superior, and then Kevin would cut power to the anti-gravity engine, which kept it aloft. Kevin climbed through the bowels of Apex Island to reach the engine, only to find his cousin Ethan Williams waiting for him with a gun in his hand. Kevin stared down the barrel of Ethan's gun. Kevin's muscles felt like jello from his exhausting climb up vent pipes against the downward force of the anti-gravity engine, which was keeping Apex Island aloft. Kevin had taken a recovery pill but needed to buy time for it to take effect. Kevin looked Ethan up and down, noting the uniform with the insignia of the Pinnacle on the chest. "Damn it, Ethan. Couldn't you have picked the right side at least once in your life?" Ethan glowered. "I did pick the right side. I picked the side that offered me $1 trillion. You can't expect me to turn down an offer like that. I'm glad they came for me and enlisted me in their forces. Finally, I'm getting the kind of break I've always deserved." Ethan began to wave the gun around. Kevin repressed the urge to flinch every time Ethan pointed it at him. "I mean," Ethan continued, "I wanted to be on your side, Kevin. I really did. I wanted us to be like family." "Ethan," Kevin ground out patiently, "we are family. We're cousins. Your father is my Uncle Thomas." "Whom you put into a coma," Ethan exclaimed, "and you left us practically penniless." "After you and he kidnapped my wife," Kevin yelled back, finally losing patience. "I let Uncle Thomas live and I made sure you both had enough money to survive. Well, admittedly, barely enough. Do you think I'd do that for anybody else?" But Ethan wasn't listening. "Do you know what it's like to try and try and try, and nothing is ever good enough? No matter what you do, the people closest to you are never impressed. They never even give you a pat on the back and say, 'Good job, Ethan.'" Kevin thought of his mother-in-law, Dorothy, who even now would be thrilled for Lily to divorce him and marry the lowest scum. He thought of his own parents, Alan and Susan, who were kind, but didn't bother to pay attention to half of what went on around them, least of all their son. He thought of every time someone looked at him and assumed he was small and unimportant just because he didn't look or act the way they thought a successful person should. Kevin felt a swell of empathy for his cousin. "Actually, Ethan, I do know," Kevin began. "Shut up! I'm talking!" Ethan bellowed. "But when I finally kill you, Kevin, everyone will be impressed. Everyone!" Ethan aimed the gun at Kevin. Kevin knew the recovery pill hadn't had time to restore his reflexes to the point that he could dodge a bullet, but he might have just enough power left to. Kevin reached out with his new telekinetic powers and tore the gun from Ethan's grip. It flew off and disappeared down one of the vent pipes. "That's it. It's over," Kevin told Ethan. But Ethan was scrabbling in his pockets and pulling out fistfuls of pills. Kevin recognized them as power pills. How did Ethan get so many? Ethan crammed the pills into his mouth, gobbling them down like a greedy child with sweets. "Ethan, stop! That's too many power pills," Kevin tried to warn him. "It's never enough," Ethan garbled through the pills. "It's never enough power, Kevin. You should know that." Ethan's body began to pulse and swell as the pills took effect at once. He stepped toward Kevin and smashed a fist into a wall. It left a hole the size of a bowling ball. Kevin backed up until he ran into the anti-gravity engine. There was nowhere for him to go. Ethan was a full foot taller than he had been moments ago. His uniform ripped at the seams as his muscles grew exponentially. Kevin stared in horror. He'd never seen power pills have this kind of effect on anybody. But then, as far as Kevin knew, no one had been foolish enough to take hundreds of the herbal concoctions at once. "This is the end of you, Kevin," Ethan slurred. Even the muscles of his mouth were swollen and unwieldy. "The end!" Ethan raised his fists and brought them smashing down. At the last second, Kevin let his legs fold under him and slipped under the blow. Ethan's fists crashed into the engine's wires and controls. The anti-gravity engine was knocked free of its power source. Kevin felt the entire island give a jolt as the powerful effects of the engine immediately began to fade. Ethan turned to follow Kevin, but he stumbled. His legs could no longer carry his growing bulk. "What's happening to me?" Ethan mumbled out. He looked at Kevin with scared, pleading eyes. "Too much power," Kevin told him. "It's never a good thing." And then Kevin's cousin, Ethan Williams, simply exploded. In the pilot station, astronaut Zip Merlot felt the ground shift under him. The controls told him that the anti-gravity engine was now offline. Apex Island was slowly falling from the sky. Unfortunately, Lake Superior was still in the distance. If Apex Island came down now, it would smash hundreds of blocks of downtown Chicago and kill millions of innocent people. "It's time for you two to split like a cheap pair of disco pants," Zip told Sasha and Olivia. "We can't leave you, Zip," Sasha exclaimed. "Someone's got to go down with the ship, and I already volunteered to be the sacrificial lamb. That Pinnacle turkey busted the autopilot with his noggin," Zip explained. Olivia stared at the old astronaut. "I should have known. I thought we might be able to talk you out of your suicide mission at the last minute," she lamented. "But I knew that's why you made sure I knew how to fly the hover chopper. You were always going to go down with the ship, so to speak."
"Hope for the best, plan for the worst. It's the unofficial motto of NASA." Zip gave her a grin. "Don't feel bad for me, Foxy Lady. I've had a groovy time of it. Now go! Kevin may still need your help to defeat the Pinnacle."
Knowing he was right, Olivia and Sasha ran for the hover chopper. Kevin shook off the blood and guts of his exploded cousin Ethan. Apex Island was now tilting at an alarming angle. Kevin knew he had to get out of there before it hit the waters of Lake Superior, or else he'd be taken to the bottom with the rest of the Pinnacle's headquarters. He ran for the stairs leading to the surface. If all went according to the plan, he'd meet Olivia, Sasha, and maybe even Zip if he'd had a change of heart about his suicide mission, where they had left the hover chopper. Kevin emerged. The few members of the Pinnacle who hadn't fled were in a panic. They ran around blindly and paid him no attention. Kevin dashed to the secluded spot where the hover chopper should have been. The area was empty. Ahead, Kevin could see the dark water of Lake Superior getting closer by the moment. "Kevin, up here!" a voice yelled. Kevin looked up to see the hover chopper hanging silently above him. Sasha lowered a rope and Kevin climbed up. Olivia was at the controls and zoomed them away. "I guess Zip?" Kevin asked, knowing that the valiant astronaut had indeed made the ultimate sacrifice. Olivia shook her head, too tearful to speak. "He decided to go down with the island," Sasha explained. Kevin glanced down. He could just make out Zip standing in the pilot station. The old astronaut saw them and saluted. Kevin returned the salute, tears brimming in his own eyes. Then Apex Island crashed into Lake Superior. The impact sent geysers of water hundreds of feet in the air. Olivia grimly hung onto the controls and sped them forward out of the splash zone. The hover chopper received an incoming radio transmission. It was Zara. "Kevin, you did it!" Kevin opened the radio channel. "We did it. Could you see the splash from where you are, Zara?" "No, I'm in the mayor's mansion with the others," Zara reported. "But the second Apex Island went down, the Pinnacle lost their stranglehold on broadcasting and cell towers. I've taken them over and we're sending out your anti-brainwashing message all over the world." Olivia swooped the hover chopper back over Chicago. Kevin looked down and saw people staring at their phones, electronic billboards, and even the super glass dome surrounding the World's Fair. The images to undo the Pinnacle's indoctrination flashed across them. People shook their heads and glanced around as if waking from a nightmare. "It's working," Kevin told Zara. "Let Lily know we're heading back to the mayor's mansion. I'll be with her soon." By the time Olivia set down the hover chopper in the park near the mayor's mansion, Kevin's recovery pill had kicked in entirely. He raced ahead of the others, eager to be back with Lily as soon as possible. Apex Island was sunk, the Pinnacle was defeated, and the Foundation was free. A figure stood on the steps of the mayor's mansion. Kevin slowed his run as he recognized his mysterious mentor, the Night King. Kevin stiffened. The Night King rarely brought good news. "Kevin Williams," the Night King intoned, "I congratulate you. I have lived for many centuries and guided many experts through the worst trials and tribulations. But never has one person overcome so much or risen through the levels so quickly." Kevin relaxed. "Thank you," he replied respectfully. "I am relieved the Foundation is safe, but I know I couldn't have done it without the help of many people, including yourself." Kevin let his voice take on a teasing note. "Even if your mysterious advice did sometimes drive me up the wall." "There is one more challenge for you to face. The greatest challenge any person can face." Kevin's heart sank, but for once the Night King smiled. "There need be no more mysteries between us, Kevin. I will tell you how you can easily succeed in your final challenge. You simply must." The Night King's words suddenly cut off with a strangled cry. Kevin took a concerned step forward as a torrent of blood spouted from the Night King's mouth. The Night King fell to the steps of the mayor's mansion, revealing Kevin's dark doppelganger DK standing behind him. DK held his bloody day dagger in one hand. Kevin gaped in astonishment as DK kicked the Night King's body down the stairs. It rolled to a stop at Kevin's feet. DK smirked. "Guess you'll never know what he was going to tell you now, Kevin." After Apex Island crashed into Lake Superior, the Pinnacle lost its stranglehold on worldwide communications. Kevin's team sent out anti-brainwashing messages across the planet and freed the Foundation from the Pinnacle's thrall. Kevin raced to rejoin Lily at the Chicago mayor's mansion and met the Night King on the front steps. The Night King congratulated Kevin and had one last piece of advice to give. But then the Night King was killed by Kevin's evil doppelganger, DK. Kevin stared at the body of his mysterious mentor, the Night King, lying at his feet. Then he looked up at the Night King's murderer, Kevin's nemesis and mirror image, DK, who stood at the top of the front steps of the mayor's mansion. DK smirked back at Kevin and flicked the blood from his day dagger, the weapon he had used to kill the Night King. Kevin and DK were identical in looks, though DK dressed in all-black designer clothes, while Kevin preferred his modest Dockers and Keds. DK's hair flopped into his eyes in a way that was somehow intentional and cool, whereas Kevin's hair just looked in need of a trim. Likewise, DK's powers had kept pace with Kevin's. They were both now powerful level 9 experts, and so equally matched, neither had ever come out the clear victor in a fair fight. "I hoped you had gone down with the rest of the Pinnacle scum on Apex Island," Kevin declared. DK laughed derisively. "I'm not the kind of leader to go down with his ship, Kevin. You should know that about me. I'm the leader who lives to fight and win another day, or in this case, later the same day." Kevin had been astounded to find that his dark flip side had clawed his way up through the ranks of the Pinnacle in record time and taken over the evil organization. Although Kevin had sunk Apex Island into Lake Superior and freed the Foundation from the Pinnacle's brainwashing, DK was now standing at the door of the home where Lily and their unborn babies were. He was between Kevin and everything that mattered most to Kevin in the world. "You haven't won anything yet," Kevin challenged. "Tell that to the Night King." DK smirked at the body of Kevin's mentor. "Too bad he didn't have the chance to give you that last piece of advice. It might just have saved your..." Kevin didn't give DK a chance to finish gloating. He hurled himself up the stairs of the mayor's mansion and seized hold of his evil double. Engaging all his newly developed telekinetic abilities, he launched them both up into the sky. As they flashed by the upper stories of the mayor's mansion, Kevin caught a glimpse of Lily's anxious face. Watching them through the window, he sent her a silent message of love and devotion before turning his attention back to his foe. Twisting and tumbling over each other in midair, the two men fought and grappled with their evenly matched bodies. DK was intent on doing as much damage to Kevin as possible, but Kevin only wanted to get DK as far away from Lily as he could. DK broke free of Kevin. but Kevin grabbed DK by one designer loafer and swung him around. Using centrifugal force, Kevin slammed DK into the side of a skyscraper. The window shattered as DK's body punched through the glass. Kevin just had time to draw his night dagger before DK came zooming back out, fancy clothes in shreds and his day dagger in his hand. But instead of using the dagger, DK sent a ferocious blast of red-leveled energy directly at Kevin. Kevin deflected it with his night dagger, but the force sent him tumbling through the air over Chicago. Kevin righted himself over the dome of superglass surrounding the World's Fair. The dome was still sending out the images Kevin had crafted to counteract the Pinnacle's brainwashing: a mystical eye, broken chains, and a soaring eagle. Kevin sent blasts of his blue-leveled energy back at DK, only to find DK had disappeared. Kevin looked around wildly for his dark doppelganger. Suddenly, DK came smashing down on Kevin from above. Kevin realized DK meant to bash him into paste against the nearly indestructible superglass. Fortunately, Kevin had a complete understanding of the dome's construction, including its weaknesses. Kevin directed a blast of power at the dome's weakest part. Thanks to the blast, Kevin and DK crashed through the dome instead of being smashed to bits against it. They went falling and tumbling down into the fairgrounds below. Kevin's clothes were now as tattered as DK's, and he knew he'd nearly exhausted his telekinetic flying abilities. He suspected that DK's would nearly be drained too. The two foes would have to finish their battle on the ground. Kevin seized the upper hand and sent a blast of leveled energy in DK's direction. DK threw himself flat just as Kevin had hoped. The blast instead hit a pirate ship carnival ride, blowing the boat off its suspension and sending it crashing down at DK. At the last second, DK rolled over and blasted red-leveled energy up at the boat. It exploded into fragments and dust. The debris rained down on Kevin and DK as they faced off again, night and day daggers drawn and gripped in their angry hands. DK let out a roar and charged Kevin. Kevin wasn't able to duck out of the way fast enough. Instead, Kevin grabbed DK and channeled their momentum around. The two went flying into a funnel cake kiosk. Funnel cake mix and oil went up everywhere, coating both combatants in thick muck. Kevin tried to rub the sticky mixture from his face, but DK was already on him. The two went down in a flurry of devastating kicks and punches. The damage they did to each other was horrific, and horrifically equal. Neither Kevin nor his evil foe could get the upper hand. They broke apart briefly. Kevin could feel DK gathering all of his powers for one final attack. Kevin did the same, reaching into the deepest part of himself and drawing on every ounce of his training, power, and abilities. Kevin and DK launched their fiercest blows yet, sending blinding rays of blue and red energy at each other from their daggers. The energies met, clashed, and exploded outward. Kevin and DK were sent flying backward, both daggers clattered to the ground. Kevin was dazed by the force of the blow. He knew he had to move, but for a moment his limbs wouldn't obey his will. At last, he rolled over and blinked his blurry eyes. Dimly, he could see where the daggers lay on the far side of the World's Fair Plaza. They still smoked and sizzled from channeling so much incredible power. Instinctively, Kevin knew that his night dagger was his only hope of defeating DK. He had to reach his weapon before DK could reach his own. Kevin tried to stand but found that he couldn't, so he crawled, inch by painful inch. His night dagger was almost in his hand. He reached out to grab it, only to be knocked away as DK grabbed him and shoved him aside.
"No, you don't," DK growled. "You've had your chance, Kevin Williams. You've lived an entire lifetime, and what have you done with it? Nothing."
Kevin, self-made billionaire, herbal master, antique expert, and the youngest person to ever achieve level 9, looked up at his dark doppelganger and croaked out, "Seriously?"
"You could be ruling worlds," snarled DK. "You could be creating worlds.
You could be the most powerful being in the universe, but instead, you spend all your time running around trying to save a foundation that's too weak and pathetic, even to try to save itself. Everyone's got to have a hobby. Kevin gasped and tried to reach a few more inches toward the daggers. But DK saw the movement and punched Kevin in the face. You can keep your pathetic little hobbies, DK growled. I want a life, a real life, and not just one skulking through shadows, not just being a reflection of someone as weak and soft-hearted as you, Kevin. Once you're gone, I'm stepping into the light and taking over everything you have. Your money, your position, your power, and most of all, your wife and children. No! Kevin gasped out at DK's last words. He struggled under DK, but DK punched him again. Kevin's skull bounced off the pavement, and he saw stars. Yes, DK hissed. I'm going to cut your throat with my day dagger, and then everything you have will be mine. Somehow, Kevin found the strength to throw DK off and deliver a few blows of his own. The two rolled over and over through the debris of the World's Fair, smashing into more exhibits and bringing them down. Everything was dirt and dust and confusion. Both men were so filthy and bruised that Kevin could hardly recognize his face in DK's own. But their melee eventually brought them close to where their daggers had landed. Both men reached blindly for their weapons, only to find the daggers were gone. I think you were looking for these, a voice over their heads said ominously. The Night King congratulated Kevin on his long-planned defeat of the Pinnacle and had one last piece of advice to offer his protege. But then the Night King was killed by Kevin's evil doppelganger, DK. A terrific battle broke out between the equally matched pair. Kevin and DK wound up dirty, tattered, and bruised in the middle of the half-destroyed World's Fair, reaching for their daggers, which were somehow suddenly missing. Kevin and DK stared up at the person who had just retrieved both the day and night daggers. The weapons had still been smoking from the tremendous leveled power that had been sent through them, but the person held them easily. Lily, Kevin whispered, half relieved, half terrified for her safety. It was Lily holding the daggers. She was hugely pregnant at 9 months with their twin babies, splay-footed and looking more beautiful than Kevin had ever seen her. She held a dagger in each hand. Throughout her pregnancy and with Kevin's own children in her womb, Lily had developed leveled powers of her own and apparently was unaffected by the dagger's heat. Lily had seen the confrontation between Kevin and DK on the steps of the mayor's mansion. She had watched the two identical men soar into the air to begin their final battle from an upper window. Her heart was filled with dread for Kevin's safety, and she knew this time she couldn't possibly sit around waiting to see what happened. Her beloved Kevin needed her. Of course the others didn't want to let her go. She was supposed to be on bed rest. She was supposed to give birth any day now. But she shoved aside anyone who tried to stop her, even her own mother, Dorothy. At the front doors of the mayor's mansion, Dalton Steele had physically blocked her way.
Lily, you can't go out there, Dalton declared. It's too dangerous. Pregnancy is clouding your judgment. Kevin gave us orders to protect you.
I don't care what your orders were, Lily shot back. My judgment is perfectly fine. I'm going to help my husband.
Dalton crossed his arms and planted his feet. The man was as big as a mountain. I won't let you leave, he growled. It's for your own good.
Then this is for your own good, too, Lily declared. She felt within herself for the strange abilities that had been growing since she had become pregnant with Kevin's children. She channeled it up and threw her down into her fist. Then she punched Dalton Steele's lights out. She caught him as the big man slumped unconscious and lowered him to the ground. Sorry, Dalton, she apologized, but there's something I have to do and no one can stand in my way. Then she ran out of the mayor's mansion before anyone else tried to stop her, and she had to hurt them as well. It was easy enough to trace the path of Kevin and DK's destruction across the city to the World's Fair. Fortunately, as mayor, Lily had complete access to the fair and followed the sound of their battle to the fair's main plaza. By the time she got there, it looked like a war had been fought. Exhibits and rides were smashed to pieces. The air was full of dust and debris. The two men were still viciously battling each other and were so filthy and battered it was impossible to tell them apart. She was distracted from the fight by the two glowing, smoking daggers nearby. Something about the blades called to the budding power within Lily. She bent down and picked them up. She hardly noticed as the fight brought the two men practically to her feet. They both reached for the place the daggers had been but couldn't find them. They hadn't even noticed her at all. "I think you were looking for these," she announced. "You shouldn't be here," both men said at once. Lily ignored them. The daggers were calling out to her, demanding she bring them together. Lily obeyed the impulse, but she didn't cross the daggers the way Kevin and DK had done again and again. Instead, she faced the blades away from each other and brought the hilts together. Instantly, the two daggers fused into one double-bladed weapon. The three of them stared in awe. "Night and day brought into one," Kevin whispered. "Darling, give me the blade," DK demanded. "Give the blade to your husband." Kevin gaped at DK in astonishment. Lily also stared at the two men. For the life of her, she couldn't tell them apart. She could feel the double dagger wanting to go to both of them equally. It was no help. "Lily, don't listen to him. I'm Kevin. I'm your husband," the other man pleaded, his voice little more than a whisper. Lily looked from one to the other, confusion clear on her face. I can't." "Sweetheart, look at me. You know me." The first man sat up and looked up at her with big, begging eyes. "You know you love me. You know you're carrying my children." He held out his hand. "Feel my love for you, my darling. It's like the sun, always there, always bright and shining. It's real and true and pure. You and I are soulmates. Together we can do anything, accomplish anything, be anything. You know we can't stand to be apart, and every minute away is like 1,000 years. Please, my love, give me the dagger and this will be over and we can be together forever." Lily felt the dagger tug at her hand. It wanted her to give it to this man, but Lily looked at the other man. He had taken the worst of the fight and couldn't even sit up. He could only stare at her with warm, hopeful eyes. "Lily," was the only word he said before the other man cut him off. "There's no time for this. I have to finish him. I'm your husband, darling. I'm Kevin. Please believe me, please." Lily looked from one to the other and warm certainty bloomed in her heart. "Kevin," she called. "Catch!" Lily threw the double dagger. It tumbled through the air and landed directly in Kevin's hand. "You little bit!" The other man, the one with all the pretty words and dead eyes, snarled at Lily. He lunged for her, but his attack and words were cut off when Kevin plunged one end of the double dagger into his chest. DK's eyes went wide with surprise. He turned on Kevin and then he laughed. The sound sent a shiver up Kevin's spine. "You think you've killed me?" DK laughed. "You don't know what you've done." DK suddenly turned to a black, oily smoke that disappeared into the double dagger and raced directly into Kevin's arm. Kevin fell back from the shock. He could feel DK inside him, trying to take over, whispering to Kevin's darkest, weakest urges. DK wanted Kevin to go out to quell and kill and conquer, to use all his extraordinary abilities for his own glory and power, to slay his enemies and enslave those weaker to his will. And Kevin was tempted. He was so tired of fighting and racing to save the Foundation. He could keep the Foundation safe if he just took it over. That would be so much simpler, so much easier, at least for Kevin. Maybe Kevin should do that. Maybe. He felt a cool, loving hand on his filthy, battered face. Kevin opened his eyes and saw Lily staring down at him. That was all he needed to resist temptation. Kevin shoved DK away from himself, forcing his evil doppelganger out of his body and back through the double dagger. The black smoke poured from the blade, When it hit the air, it turned to shards of obsidian mirror, the mirror that had birthed DK in the first place. They hit the pavement harmlessly and shattered into dust. The double dagger broke apart in Kevin's hand. The night and day daggers were two separate weapons again. Impossibly near the end of his strength, Kevin fell back. He had faced down his dark self and worst impulses, any person's greatest challenge, and won. "Lily!" Kevin whispered as Lily dug into his trusty satchel of herbal remedies and found a few recovery pills. "Here, take these." She held the pills to his mouth and helped him sip water to swallow them. "How did you know it was me?" Kevin wondered, feeling the pills take effect and new strength in his body. He was able to sit up and take her into his arms. "It was your eyes," Lily whispered into the crook of Kevin's neck. "I saw the love in your eyes, Kevin. The same love that's been there since the first day I met you. There was nothing in DK's eyes. Nothing at all." Kevin held Lily tighter. "Lily, you're the most amazing, loving, beautiful." Lily cut him off with a strange grunt of pain. Suddenly, they both were sitting in a puddle of something. Lily looked up at Kevin with wide, scared eyes. "My water just broke. The babies are coming." She broke off as a contraction ripped through her body. "Kevin, the babies are coming now." After steering Apex Island into Lake Superior, Kevin thought that the Pinnacle had been vanquished once and for all. Unfortunately, Kevin realized the battle was far from over when Dark Kevin attacked yet again. Sharing the same powers, Kevin and Dark Kevin were locked in a stalemate that went on until, finally, Dark Kevin was stabbed in the chest with the help of none other than Lily. Although Dark Kevin matched Kevin's physical strength, the one thing he could never obtain was the same thing that did him in: true love. After delivering the fatal blow, Lily's water suddenly broke. Kevin could hardly believe his eyes. Even after facing countless villains and plots to take over the world, he had never felt fear as intensely as he did in this moment. As if his brain was misfiring, he seemed frozen and overwhelmed and could barely get his words out. "We have to hurry, Kevin," Lily interrupted. "We have to get to the hospital right away." As the words left her mouth, Kevin shook off his fear and leapt into action. "Don't worry," he said. "We'll be there before you know it. Just hang on, all right?" With that, Kevin scooped Lily up into his arms and used his telekinesis to launch himself into the air. As they soared over the city, Lily looked down and made sense of the latest accomplishment of her husband, who never ceased to amaze her. "Well, that's new," she remarked. "You can fly now?" Kevin chuckled as he swerved to avoid a cloud. "When there's an emergency, I can summon the power," he said. "I'll never have to sit in traffic again." Just then, Lily felt another fierce contraction. "Oh gosh, the twins are ready, Kevin. Are we almost there?" Kevin nodded. "I can see the hospital on the horizon. Hang in there just a couple more minutes, Lily. We're almost at the beginning of the rest of our lives." Lily exhaled deeply to manage the mounting pain. Then she suddenly thought of someone. "Mother Dorothy!" she exclaimed. "Kevin, you have to call my mother and tell her what's happening." Kevin groaned. Why spoil the best moment of our lives by inviting her? Lily reached up and slapped his face. She wasn't kidding around. "She's my mother, Kevin. She has to be here. Please." "Well, my arms are a little full at the moment," said Kevin. Without skipping a beat, Lily pulled out her cell phone, dialed Dorothy's number, and held it up to Kevin's ear as another labor pain caused Lily to yelp and wince. The phone only rang once before Dorothy answered. "Lily," she began, "is everything all right?" "Dorothy, it's Kevin. Lily's water broke just a moment ago and we're on our way to the hospital. Meet us there if you can." On the other end of the line, Kevin could hear Dorothy begin hustling her way out the door. "Oh my gosh, really? I'll be right there," she exclaimed. Dorothy was clearly so thrilled at the news that within a few hours she'd be a grandmother that she didn't even take time to lob an insult at Kevin. A few moments later, Kevin came in for a smooth landing right in front of the hospital's automatic door. Waiting for a bus to pick him up by the door, a young man in a wheelchair could hardly believe his eyes. "Were you just flying?" he asked incredulously. "How the heck did you do that?" Kevin cracked a smile as he rushed Lily through the door. "Oh, eat your fruits and vegetables," he said. Thankfully, Dr. Serafina Willow was in the lobby right as they rushed in. It was as if she had been there waiting for Kevin and Lily for hours. "Dr. Willow, it's time. Lily's water just broke." Dr. Willow turned her head toward them and grinned very slightly. "Well, we've been waiting a very long time for this, haven't we? Quick," she said. "We need to move her into the delivery ward." Kevin gripped Lily's hand as she sat down in a wheelchair and was quickly rushed to a delivery room by 2 orderlies. Just as Lily was being lifted into a bed, Dorothy appeared around the corner and rushed into the room with frantic energy. "Oh God, it's happening!" she exclaimed. "I'm here, Lily, I'm right here." Lily grabbed Dorothy's hand and squeezed it tight. "I know you are, Mom. I wouldn't have it any other way." Just then, Dr. Willow burst into the room wearing scrubs and a hairnet. "Make way, people. I'm going to need all the space I can get," she said. "In fact, for Lily's sake, you might be better off waiting in the lobby." Kevin made a confused face. "And miss the birth of my children? No way," he said. Dr. Willow let out a frustrated sigh. "Fine. Try to keep it together then," she said. "There's going to be a lot of blood, but it's nothing to worry about." Suddenly, Kevin felt a sinking feeling in his stomach. Why would Dr. Willow try to scare us out of the room like that? She knows how important this moment is to all of us. Something doesn't seem quite right. Just then, Dorothy scowled as Dr. Willow rolled her chair up to Lily. "Aren't you going to wash your hands or put on gloves first?" Dorothy asked. Dr. Willow's face was starting to look quite impatient. "Look, I don't need this," she said. "If you're going to tell me how to do my job, then you can wait outside." "Don't talk to my mother like that," Lily snapped. "What's gotten into you, Dr. Willow?" "Nothing," Dr. Willow snapped back. "Just sit back and try to relax, Lily. This will all be over soon." Suddenly, a familiar voice shouted from the back of the room. "Don't let that woman anywhere near Lily." When Kevin turned over his shoulder, he felt his heart skip a beat. Standing there in the doorway was none other than Juanita Hernandez, the devilish woman who had, just a few weeks ago, tried to steal Lily's babies right out of her womb in a fetal abduction scheme. Like a true guardian, Kevin stood up and stopped her at the door. "It's you who shouldn't be here, Juanita. I should have known you'd try to stop this pregnancy one last time." "You don't understand, Kevin," Juanita replied. "I'm not Juanita. It's me, Dr. Willow." Then she pointed at the imposter and shouted, "That's the real Juanita. She stole my face, Kevin, and her face on my head in return." Suddenly, the reality of the situation hit Kevin like a ton of bricks. He remembered that the face-off machine had been stolen from the World's Fair exhibition right before the Pinnacle invaded. Amid all the chaos, he had completely forgotten. Just then, Kevin was snapped back into the moment by a blood-curdling scream. "Kevin! She's trying to steal the twins!" When Kevin looked over, he saw Juanita reaching for a surgical knife. "Not on my watch!" he exclaimed. As Kevin approached Juanita, she jumped up from her seat and pointed her blade at Kevin. "Back off, Kevin," she said. "You've had this coming for a long time. You ruined my life when you murdered my 2 sons, and now it's my turn for retribution." In the blink of an eye, Kevin disarmed her and pushed her up against the wall. "Coming after me is one thing, but going after my wife and kids is unforgivable. Give me one good reason why I shouldn't kill you right now." Juanita squirmed to break free but couldn't escape Kevin's firm hold. "I would have made a better parent to these children than the 2 of you combined. I would have raised them perfectly. You have so many enemies, Kevin. How can you be sure your children will ever be truly safe?" Kevin frowned. "I think I'll take my chances. Take a nap, Juanita," he said as he karate chopped her across the neck, instantly dropping her to the floor. "Somebody get her out of here, please." As a pair of hospital workers dragged Juanita out of the room, Lily felt another contraction and let out an agonized moan, prompting the real Dr. Willow, the one who still looked like evil Juanita Hernandez, but who had the hands of a world-renowned surgeon, to spring into action. "It's now or never," she exclaimed as she rolled her chair in front of Lily. "Push! Lily, push!" Dr. Willow yelled. As Lily pushed harder and harder, her screams became louder and sweat began to pour down her face. Kevin and Dorothy gripped her hands tight, encouraging her every step of the way. For hours, Lily pushed and pushed until all of a sudden, Dr. Willow could see the first signs of life creeping into the world. "She's crowning! This is it!" she yelled. Kevin's heart plunged into his stomach as he looked down and saw Dr. Willow grasping at his newborn's head. Throughout his adventures, he had faced many terrifying things, but all of a sudden, his stomach was tied in more knots than ever before. Dr. Willow looked up and saw Kevin's face starting to pale. "Kevin, stay with me. Are you all right?" Kevin nodded. Yes, I'm fine, just feeling a little lightheaded is all." Just then, Kevin's leg turned to jello, and he hit the ground with a sudden thud. Dorothy rolled her eyes and turned her attention back to Lily. "Men!" she muttered. Under her breath, though what she really meant was, "Kevin!" The next thing Kevin remembered was Dorothy's voice stirring him awake. "Kevin? Kevin, wake up! There's someone I think you should meet." As Kevin's eyelids began to blink, all he could register was a warm, glowing light. But as his eyes adjusted and the room came into focus, he beheld the most beautiful scene he had ever seen in his life. There in front of him, Lily was lying back in the hospital bed, peaceful as an angel, and in her arms, Kevin saw that she was cradling a baby against her chest. When he first laid his eyes on Lily and the baby, miracle was the first word that came to mind. He was so enamored by the sight that it took him a moment to remember that Lily had been pregnant with twins. "Hold on," he said, "where's the other one?" Right on cue, Dr. Willow approached Kevin and handed him the second baby, swaddled in a baby blue blanket. As Kevin took his son into his arms, he was filled with something he'd never felt before. For a moment, he tried to identify what this new feeling might be called, but in the end, there were no words to describe it. Looking at Lily, he could sense that she felt it too. Whatever this new feeling was, it was warm, disarming, and sacred. "Lily, I can't believe it," he said. "I've never felt this way in my entire life." Lily giggled as Kevin nestled up beside her. "Me neither, Kevin. It's beautiful, isn't it? It feels like my entire life was leading up to this moment. Like this right here is what life's really about." A single tear rolled down Kevin's cheek as he stared into the eyes of newly beloved children. Reaching down, the baby in his arms reached up and latched onto his finger, bringing a smile to his face. "A boy and a girl," Lily remarked. "What should we name them?" Kevin was so busy saving the world these past few months that he had never stopped to think about it. "How about Aaron and Dennis?" said Kevin. Lily looked up at him and smiled. "What made you think of those names?" she asked. Kevin shrugged. "They just have a nice ring to them, don't you think? Little Aaron having a tea party with her stuffed animals. Little Dennis scraping his knee." Lily's eyes began to twinkle as she imagined little Aaron and Dennis running around the house playing make-believe and building forts out of pillows. "I like it," she said. "Dennis and Aaron it is." After giving Kevin and Lily some personal space, Dorothy approached the bed and crossed her arms with a friendly grin. "There, Kevin, was that so hard?" she said with a bit of light-hearted sarcasm. When Kevin looked up at her, he felt nothing but love. His mother-in-law, Dorothy, the invading forces of the Pinnacle. Nothing could possibly spoil a moment as sweet as this. It was the happiest Kevin had ever been in his entire life. Thus ends the story of Kevin Williams and his Insta Empire. We hope you enjoyed Kevin's rise to power and his many globe-trotting adventures. Listen to more captivating shows on the Pocket FM app. Stay tuned for more.